The police station had almost shut down for the night when Officer Daniel Brooks noticed something unusual inside the K9 enclosure. Shadow, his black and tan German Shepherd, a dog known for discipline and almost robotic calm, was pacing restlessly. His ears were pinned back, his tail stiff, his nose twitching toward the exit gate as if sensing something beyond human perception. Daniel frowned. Shadow never behaved like this. If anything, the dog was famous in their department for being unshakably steady, even under sirens, gunfire, or chaos. But now, his paws scraped anxiously against the concrete floor, and a low, worried growl rumbled in his throat. Daniel stepped closer to the enclosure. "Hey, buddy, what's going on?" he asked gently, but instead of calming, Shadow pressed his nose against the gate and let out a desperate bark, short, sharp, and urgent. Then another, and another. It wasn't aggression, it wasn't excitement, it was something else entirely. Something like alarm. Moments later, before Daniel even had time to unlock the gate, Shadow did something he had never done in all his years of service. He leapt against the kennel door with such force it rattled on its hinges. The watering bowl tipped, clattering across the concrete. His bark rose in pitch, frantic and insistent. Daniel's pulse quickened. Something was wrong. He opened the gate, and Shadow shot out like a bullet. The dog skidded on the polished floor, scrambled toward the front entrance, and pawed anxiously at the door, whining now, turning back toward Daniel as if begging him to follow. Okay, I'm coming." Daniel grabbed his jacket, his flashlight, and his keys. He didn't even stop to notify dispatch. Shadow's instincts had saved lives before. But this time, there was no scent of explosives, no sign of fleeing suspects, no alarms blaring in the distance. Just an unexplained, desperate urgency pulsing from the dog he trusted with his life. As soon as Daniel opened the station door, Shadow bolted outside into the chilly evening air. The wind carried the faint smell of rain and the distant hum of passing cars on the highway. The dog paused for half a second, nose to the ground, then sprinted across the lot and toward the wooded path behind the station. "Shadow, slow down," Daniel yelled, but Shadow didn't stop. He darted into the trees, weaving between branches as though following a trail only he could sense. Daniel followed, panting, his flashlight beam slicing through the darkness. The forest floor was damp, leaves crunching underfoot, the air thick with the earthy scent of pine and soil. After nearly 5 minutes of running, Shadow slowed suddenly. His ears perked, and he walked forward cautiously, steps soft and deliberate now. Daniel caught up, chest heaving, but froze mid-step when he saw what Shadow was approaching. At the base of a fallen tree lay a young woman curled on her side, shivering violently. Her long hair was tangled, her clothes soaked with mud, and she held one hand over her belly, round, unmistakably pregnant. Her breaths came in short, shallow bursts, each one sounding like a struggle. She looked up weakly as Daniel approached, her eyes filled with terror and exhaustion. "Ma'am." Daniel's voice softened immediately. "Are you hurt?" Her lips trembled. She tried to speak but only managed a faint whimper as another jolt of pain rippled through her body. Shadow moved closer, sniffed her gently, then let out another desperate bark, as if saying, "Hurry. Please hurry." Daniel knelt beside her, carefully assessing. She looked pale, too pale. Her skin was cold, and when he lifted her hand, the one pressed protectively against her abdomen, he noticed blood smeared on her palm. Fear shot through him. "How long have you been out here?" She swallowed hard. A long time," she whispered. I was trying to get to the road, I slipped. I think." She winced as another contraction seized her. "Something's wrong. My baby." "You're okay now," Daniel said firmly. "I've got you. We're going to get you help." He radioed for EMS immediately, voice tight with urgency. But reception was weak in the woods, and though he managed to get a message through, he wasn't sure how much they'd heard. He removed his jacket and wrapped it around her shaking body. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Lena," she whispered. "Please, my baby, it's too early. I wasn't supposed to." Another contraction cut her off, making her cry out. Shadow whimpered and lay down beside her, pressing his warm body against her side to share his heat. "You found me," she whispered to the dog. You saved me." Daniel checked her pulse. It was fast and weak. She was losing blood, and her contractions were too close together. His heart pounded. Ems might not reach them in time. He lifted her carefully into his arms, adjusting her weight to avoid pressure on her abdomen. Hang in there, Lena. I'm getting you out. The trek back to the station felt endless. Tree roots snagged his boots, mud slicked the ground, and rain began to fall in cold sheets. Lena cried out in pain every few steps, her grip tight around Daniel's shoulder. Shadow stayed close, guiding them through the path like a silent guardian. When they finally burst from the trees, the sound of sirens in the distance made Daniel exhale in relief. As he ran across the lot, EMTs rushed toward them with a stretcher. But as they transferred Lena onto it, one of the paramedics frowned deeply. Her blood pressure's dropping fast. She's hemorrhaging. Get the clamps and saline. Lena's breathing turned ragged. Please, my baby, don't let something happen. Daniel squeezed her hand. You're going to be okay. Both of you. Her eyes fluttered. Thank you. Thank your dog. He wouldn't stop barking. Shadow, now soaking wet, barked again, frantic, almost anguished, as the paramedics worked swiftly. They loaded her into the ambulance. Daniel climbed in after getting permission. Shadow tried as well, but Daniel gently held him back. Stay, Shadow, stay. The dog whined but obeyed, pacing anxiously as the doors slammed shut. The ride to the hospital was chaotic. Sirens wailing, monitors beeping, paramedics rushing to stabilize Lena. Her contractions intensified, her body arching in pain, her breaths turning into gasps. At one point, a paramedic muttered under his breath, "Too much blood loss, this is bad." Daniel held her hand as she cried into the oxygen mask. She looked terrified, not for herself, but for the life inside her. Please, she whispered to no one in particular. Please save my baby. You're strong, Daniel said, trying to steady his voice. Just hold on. We're almost there. When they arrived at the hospital, Lena was wheeled into emergency surgery. Daniel stood alone in the bright hallway, rainwater dripping from his hair, his heart pounding with fear for a woman he didn't even know an hour ago. Shadow arrived with another officer minutes later, dragging him through the sliding doors, barking until he spotted Daniel. The big shepherd pressed his head into Daniel's chest as if asking, "Is she safe? Did we make it in time?" Daniel knelt and held the dog close. "I don't know, boy. I don't know." Time crawled. Nurses hurried past. Alarms sounded in distant rooms. Rain hammered the windows, lightning illuminating the dim waiting area. Shadow sat stiffly beside Daniel, ears flicking toward every sound. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a doctor approached them with a solemn expression. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. The doctor spoke gently. "Officer Brooks, she made it through surgery." Daniel sagged with relief. "But," the doctor continued softly, "it was very close. She had a placental abruption. She lost a dangerous amount of blood. If she hadn't been found when she was, we would have lost both her and the baby." Shadow let out a soft whine, as if understanding the gravity of the words. The doctor's expression softened. "Her baby boy is in the neonatal unit. He's premature, and he's fragile, but he's alive. Can she see him?" Daniel asked. The doctor shook his head. "Not yet. She's unconscious and on heavy support. But she'll recover. Eventually." Daniel exhaled slowly, gratitude flooding through him. "Can we see her?" The doctor hesitated only briefly. Just for a minute. Inside the dim recovery room, machines beeped steadily beside Lena's bed. Her face was pale, her lashes damp with tears that had dried hours earlier. She looked fragile, like a person whose life had been held together by the barest thread. Shadow lay beside the bed, resting his head on the frame, his eyes watching her with quiet devotion. "You saved her," Daniel whispered to the dog. "You somehow knew." Shadow blinked, tail thumping once against the floor, but he didn't move his head from its vigil. Lena stirred faintly, her eyelids fluttering. Daniel stepped closer. "Lena, can you hear me?" Her voice was barely audible. "My baby, he's okay," Daniel said softly. "He's fighting, just like you." A weak smile touched her lips before she drifted back to sleep. Over the next 2 weeks, Lena slowly recovered. Daniel and Shadow visited her daily, always staying within hospital rules. The staff adored Shadow. Nurses sneaked him treats, and doctors scratched behind his ears during late rounds. Shadow's presence brought comfort not only to Lena but to others in the ward. When Lena finally stabilized enough to visit her baby, Daniel wheeled her into the neonatal unit. The moment she saw the tiny infant, tubes connected, chest rising with small, courageous breaths, her tears came in waves. She reached through the incubator window and touched his delicate fingers. "Hi, little one," she whispered, voice trembling. "I'm so sorry you had to fight so hard." Daniel noticed her eyes growing red, her shoulders shaking. He stepped closer. "He's alive because you didn't give up. And because Shadow wouldn't give up on finding you." At that, Shadow sat proudly beside them, head high, tail wagging gently. Lena wiped her cheeks and looked at Daniel with gratitude so deep it seemed carved into her soul. "Can I ask you something?" she said softly. Why did Shadow come looking for me? I don't understand." Daniel shrugged slightly. "Dogs don't always need reasons. Sometimes they sense things we can't. Maybe he smelled distress. Maybe he heard something. Or maybe," he looked down at Shadow lovingly, "maybe he just knew someone needed him." In the following days, Lena revealed her story. She had been living alone, with no family nearby. The father of her baby had left months earlier. She'd been walking to the bus stop when she slipped in the forested trail shortcut behind the station. She'd been out there for hours, cold, bleeding, unable to move. "I kept praying someone would hear me," she whispered one afternoon. "I didn't think a dog would be the one." Daniel smiled. "Shadow's not just any dog." She nodded. "I owe him my life." As weeks passed, the baby grew stronger, gaining weight, breathing more steadily. Lena recovered too, slowly reclaiming her strength, her spirit, her hope. Officers from Daniel's department raised money to help her get on her feet. Nurses donated baby clothes. Strangers, moved by her story, sent letters and gifts. One morning, when Lena was finally discharged from the hospital, the staff gathered outside the entrance. Daniel and Shadow stood waiting. Lena held her baby boy close, wrapped in a soft blue blanket. She walked up to Daniel, emotion catching in her throat. "I named him Samuel," she said softly. "It means, God has heard. Because that day, someone heard me." Daniel swallowed hard, touched by the weight of her words. Then she knelt, looking directly at Shadow. "And his middle name is Shadow." The dog's ears perked, tail wagging furiously. He stepped forward and gently nudged the baby's blanket with his nose, a soft rumble of affection vibrating in his chest. Daniel blinked rapidly, feeling an unexpected rush of emotion. "Shadow is honored," he said with a trembling smile. Lena wiped her tears. "I wanted you both to know, I'm not alone anymore. Because of that day, my life didn't end. It began again." Shadow barked once, a warm, proud, joyful sound. The group stood there for a long moment, the morning sun shining over them, a new beginning unfolding gently around a mother and her fragile newborn. Life had brought them together through fear, pain, and near tragedy, but kindness, courage, and a dog's unwavering instinct had rewritten all their destinies. And in the heart of a small American town, people would tell the story for years to come. The night a police dog barked desperately at a pregnant woman in the woods, and how that bark saved 2 lives long before anyone knew they were in danger. Because sometimes, heroes don't carry badges, not the metal kind. Sometimes they walk on 4 paws, guided only by love, loyalty, and the strange, beautiful power of knowing when a soul cries out for help. And Shadow, he had heard her. Long before it was too late.